Hey guys, today we've got Aaron's Evo all the way from WA. He sent it to us a few months ago and it's got an ERS 800 horsepower package. One thing that we want to do is send him, and obviously everyone on a video, that's a common thing that we get asked, is how to drive a dog box on the street and also on the track. Check it out. So we have Aaron's Evo driving on the streets of Sydney. I'll do a quick video on the package. So we're running a Haltech Elite 2500 with the new UC10 dash, the 8-button keypad. So he's got different functions for boost, exhaust, fans, anti-lag, all of that. This is the PPG dog box. Super important when you have a dog box in an Evo, or probably many other cars, is don't learn the hard way. I'm a big believer not learning the hard way like I did many years ago and doing a money shift. Invest in a lockout shifter. They are definitely worth it. You've got some from 1,500 to probably a few grand, but it does save your very expensive dog box and a super expensive engine. You don't want to get in the way of money shifting back to first gear or the wrong gear, over revving the engine, hurting your gearbox. I've done it. It's not a good feeling, and there's many ways to drive a dog box. I think I've broken it down to about 3 different ways, and we'll quickly drive it on the street now to show you the 3 different ways to drive a dog box in an Evo. So we've got it on idle, it's in neutral. On the street, we like to lock the shifter so it drives like a normal H-pattern shifter. If you unlock this feature and you pull the pin out, it's pretty cool. Now it's locked, where you would have to lift this to go into first gear or also reverse and stuff like that. So when you're cruising on the street, it's much easier to just keep it unlocked, and then it will drive like a factory car. What's super important with the dog box is hold the clutch in for a few seconds before you go to first gear, before you take off, because obviously the clutches slow down and then there's no clunks on your dog rings and stuff. So the first way to drive a dog box is standard, like a normal gearbox. You can clutch in, you don't have to rev match. It's very easy. No rev matching needed. You drive it like a manual. The only thing on this point, and the first way to drive a dog box, is making sure you're shifting quick. The clutch being in, and this is something important I want to point out, you can leave the clutch in forever, but in terms of the actual shifting, be super quick, because you don't want to grind on the dog rings. So even when cruising, as you can see all the traffic in front of us, very easy, very smooth. You don't need a lot of revs. Drive it like a normal manual gearbox. Now, when going down gears, it is recommended to rev match, but again, I've done it many times on the street and track. You can just go in like a normal manual and the car will drive fine. The only thing you want to avoid is that grind. Now, that's the first way to drive it. Super simple, super easy. This is mainly for when you're cruising. Obviously, on the racetrack is a bit different, which I'll get to. I'll now talk about the second way to drive a dog box. So it's probably a bit hard to show my feet and the shifting at the same time, but we're in second gear now. The second way to drive a dog box would be, you're cruising, you get out, you give it a little rev and go to third. You'll do the same thing with every shift. Little rev, go in. It almost doesn't even clunk. Same thing with down gearing, come out, little rev, go in. If you can heel toe, it's probably even better again for down gearing. But ultimately, again, like I said, be quick on the actual shifting, not the clutch. So that's the second way to drive a dog box, is rev matching, and it'll just be nicer on the shifts. And then the third way is probably the race way. So as most people might know, if you've ever driven a dog box or know someone that has, you can shift without clutching. If you've got a strain gauge, you could set up, the tuner can set up instant shift without having to lift, but ultimately you want to lift the throttle a bit, so you're holding it flat, you want to lift and then shift. So I'll do a little one now. lifting off the throttle, and instant shift, no clutch. So that third way is probably the easiest only on the track. I wouldn't recommend it on the street. Is using no clutch, whether it's lifting off the throttle about 20% or using the strain gauge, depending on your tuning. That I only recommend on the track. It does put a bit of wear if it's not done nicely on the street. Ultimately, when you are gonna start racing, you want to pull the pin out. That's super important on your lockout shifter, because you're gonna start shifting without a clutch. So in that case, whether you're using the strain gauge or lifting the throttle, you want to pull that pin out and start racing, which it's pretty hard to do on the street. In simple terms, you can drive it like a standard 5-speed or 6-speed, like a synchro box. Just be easier on the dog rings by shifting in it quick. So now we're going to do a few shifts without the clutch, as you can see.